I happened to watch this lady. She moved from the States to Ghana. She's an African American lady, and she had shared about how a company here in the States had approached her about putting together some kind of show about people who were moving.
Okay.
Relocated back to Ghana. And she said, she's not into that kind of thing, but she was curious. And she decided to do her own investigation. And she said it caught her by surprise that she asked a few questions, because I guess she's probably dealt in those circles. And she asked questions like, do you have anybody from Ghana in a consultation role? What type of representation do you have in your team that is putting together this story? And pretty much said it was zero. And she had a problem with that. And I'm asking that, I'm laying that as a foundation. When it comes to local content, what are your thoughts as far as who should be key decision makers, or who are essential parties to that kind of project if you're putting together local content? So let's say, for example, I'm putting together a story about maybe my hometown, right?
Mm-hmm.
Am I bringing my team of American experts to come do the work?
Well,
the research, the photography, when I know in my hometown or in Nigeria, you do have comparable talents, right?
Well, this is the thing with that. So I don't think it's wrong to have your own team. And the reason I say this is because the way people work together is kind of different. So if I am used to a certain particular way of working, and I have somebody who works with me here, and I want to go home and do something, of course, my first inclination would be, will you come with me?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because I don't live at home.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's at home.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can be recommended some people, but at the end of the day, I really don't know. But my core will be who I know.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I get home and I see others who can assist, they will be the ones. Now, that's a different thing with working. And I'm thinking about like shooting something.
Yeah.
Shooting a movie or something
Yes.
like that. Of course, like your AD, your director of photography, your core people are going to be the ones that you worked with before, right? They're your team. But then when you go home, there are going to be other positions that can be filled. And then you fill those. Now, with the actual story itself, of course, we're the only people that I feel, and this is my opinion, that would tell our stories authentically, right? So if she's talking about the experience of the African American going back home, she's the one that has to tell that story, because she's the African American that went back to Ghana, right? But I feel that I'm the only one who will be able to tell my story authentically.
Mm-hmm.
Who will be able to tell the story of my culture authentically. And then, mind you, Nigeria is vast. So when I have a Yoruba character, I'm not going to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily for me, my mom grew up in Ibadan, so she understands all of that. But I have friends that I can ask. And for when they give me answers, I understand it more than someone who just wants to write a princess story, and decides to, but you will not be able to tell that story authentically. It's the same problem we have with white authors trying to write black stories. It's not possible. I mean, you can do it, but it's not authentic because you're not in that skin. So you don't know how to properly talk about their experiences. Exactly. You can't capture. There's no way you can capture it properly.
Mm-hmm. Like, how do you capture the excitement that one would feel when you're going to your hometown for Christmas?
Exactly. You can't capture that. You can't write it. There's no way you can write it if you're not experiencing it. There's no way you can do that.
Interesting. So, we see that Netflix is making inroads in
Mhm.
terms of the type of content that they're offering, and I mean African
Yeah.
stories that are being shared. What are your thoughts?
Well, Netflix doing a good job, and then the reason I like it is because, and I think Netflix is just licensing the stories, so they're not actually the ones that are producing it.
But don't they
Just
have
like-
some of those movies that they say are being made for Netflix? I think I've seen things, projects like that.
Like, what's the name? Genevieve's movie, Lionheart.
Lionheart. Mm-hmm.
You see, Netflix, I think her and Netflix are partners or something in it, and it's an original Netflix. But Netflix, remember, Netflix is a streaming platform.
Yes.
Netflix has no studio.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's the magic of Netflix. They have no studio. They have no nothing. What they do is they get in partnership with people. Now, before it was just a matter of you bringing your stuff and they license it and they put it up.
Mm-hmm.
But I think now they're getting into the other part of it where they actually put some money up.
Okay.
You do that.
They have an interest.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's now Niger on Netflix, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So they are, and the reason I say that they're doing a good job is because now what I have on paper, a lot of my audience actually sees it on TV. And they're like, oh, I saw this part. And we have a thing in my group where it's like, okay, what Niger film I'm watching this weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And they pick one. And then they ask me stuff. And then, it's interesting because now they get to see in film what I've been writing about. Yeah. So, yeah, I think it's a cool thing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And in terms of, if going back to your role as a writer, what are your thoughts on whether to go the independent publishing route or to go with, a publisher? And what are some of the key considerations? Like if I had a book, based on your experience, what are things that you think I should be on the lookout for, just as a way of protecting my work and presenting myself in the best light?
Well, you got to have a good book anyways. I always tell people to write their voice. Don't write what trends. Don't write what you see is sparkly at this moment. Just write what is in your heart to write, right? That does not negate the fact that you have to do research and you have to learn your craft and you have to learn everything. That does not negate that part. What I mean is write what it is that you're passionate about. Passion in the story is what moves you from motivation to discipline, right? It moves you from, oh, yay, because at the end of it, you're not even, but the discipline part of it is like the passion part of it. So you're not your path depends on, again, what you want to do, what you envision for yourself. In this day and age, skill has nothing to do with whether you want to go indie or whether you want to go traditional. It has nothing to do with that.
What do you mean by skill? I don't quite get it.
There used to be the notion that if you don't get traditionally published, you can't write.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So self-publishing was stereotyped for a very long time. But in recent years, indie publishing has just gone through the roof, and it cannot be that. The reason why I will not traditionally publish is because I don't want you to change who I am. Because when you do that, when you traditionally publish, it has a lot of good things. They put a lot of money behind your book. You get a huge marketing thing. You don't have to worry about
marketing.
Okay, which blog is going to put it up today and you don't have to worry about the business aspect of it so much, right? All you have to be a creative and write and make sure your work is out there, right? But when you give it to them, they can tear it down. We don't want this. There's too much of this and there's too much of that. And there's too much of that. Yeah, it will be painful. And then they will strip it. And you were like, okay, well, they gave me money, so let me just continue. Get it? So it has advantages. Indie is the fact that you have to now do everything yourself. From inception to cover to everything. And it does not fall off of quality. For me, I've been indie published. I only traditionally published one book, which I do regret for a lot of my life. But anyway, so I've always been indie published, right? And I get to choose my stock. I get to choose what my cover looks like. I get to choose when I want to put the book on sale. I get to choose which platforms I put them on. I get to choose which bloggers are going to talk about. I get to choose what's in it, right?
I see.
All my characters have Nigerian African names. There will never be one that does not. Well, let me not put never, but there will probably not be one that does not have one. They all have. So I get to choose my voice. I get to choose what I want to represent. What I want to represent. I get to choose all of that. So it just depends on your vision for your writing career. If you know you can't do it all that other stuff, then yeah, go traditional. But you have to put a proposal together, you have to get an agent, and then your agent has to market your story.
Wow. And
then you have to put it on a schedule. So, probably 2022, because they have like these 18 months interval between where you actually sign and when it actually comes out.
Wow.
So that's just, it depends on what you want to do with it.
And you might have answered this, but I will ask the question. So is there a difference between storytelling versus the craft of writing?
Yes. Yeah, I always say yes. You can be a good storyteller, but you don't know how to write. You don't know how to carry your audience with you. You don't know how to be immersive enough so that they want to know, right? You don't know how to, there's a skill to it. There's a goal, motivation, conflict. Everything has to be going towards somewhere. There has to be a reason why, and there has to be something that's stopping it. If I'm telling you a story, just be gisting and be going, there's this and this. There's no...
there's no end goal.
Exactly. There's no goal, there's no motivation, there's no conflict. You have to make sure that pops in each and every scene, that the person reading it wants to keep moving. That's all craft. That's all craft. I think I told you before, I do a painful brain dump. And when I dump, then I go back, because now I have to craft that stuff up together. We have to make sure it ends here and it's a cliffhanger, or somebody asks a question, or somebody cuts somebody out, or somebody walked out. Something has to make the reader to turn the page.
It's interesting.
Yeah, so it's craft. Storytelling, I can do that all day.
It's interesting because I don't know if you were into Korean dramas, but I used to watch Korean dramas, and they do that cliffhanger thing so bad. You want to pull them, yank them out of the screen and say, why would you do that? Because they have these series, it could be 14 episodes. So you're like, okay, maybe at episode 2, I'll go to bed.
Well, I think, let me go back on that. So when I say cliffhanger, I mean cliffhanger within the book.
Yeah, I understand.
Oh no, but there are some books, and that's why I want to clarify. There are some books that actually end
and you're wondering
on a cliffhanger, and you're like, you should have been upfront with me and told me that it's a 3-book series, that it's a cliffhanger, because I just waited you out till you got to the end of it before I read it.
Yeah.
So all my stories are interwoven, but all of them stand alone. Right? I mean, if you want to read the Danjuma Brothers, it's going to be a better experience if you read the 3 of them, then read their sister. But if you just pick up their sister and say, okay, that's what I'm going to read.
It's a story.
It's a story on its own. So so when I just want to clarify that, because it's a pet peeve of mine. For actual good book to be published, and it didn't end. And I'm like, what? So I have to wait, because I know what the writing process is. So I know I'm going to be waiting at least 6 months.
Wow.
It's different between waiting for a character to show up in another book.
Yes.
But whoever that book is about, they had it happily ever after, and it's done.
But even with the Korean dramas I was telling you about, because it's 14 episodes, just imagine a whole season, right? But by the time I'm watching it, I usually make sure it's a season that's over, at least most of the ones that I watch. I don't have those issues, but I'm like whenever it comes out, I'll watch the rest of it. But they actually will give you a complete story. It's just that sometimes you're like, oh gosh, why did it end here? Yeah, because then it makes
the only thing I can
take up my whole weekend.
I could draw a reference to was when I used to be a huge fan of Scandal.
Okay.
So it was like anytime Scandal ended, I would probably be moping around depending on what happened. And that's the reason why I don't watch TV like that anymore. Because that show did something to me. It was like, Thursdays, my kids knew. On Thursdays, they just take their respect themselves, go upstairs and go and just bow. Because it was like that was the day. But then I think I stopped watching in season 5 because I felt, okay, yeah, this is just going off the charts. So I can get what you're saying. Because I remember when I used to put my book writing schedule around when the season comes back. Yeah, it was that bad. I'm like, yeah, we need to shift this because Scandal will be here. I can't promise anything. I need to have my full attention. That kind of stuff. So I get it.
So, now that you've identified that storytelling is different from the craft of writing, what are your thoughts on writing workshops, getting like an MFA in writing? Does that in any way help you, with your authentic storytelling? Or is it just a credential that gives you the discipline to know how to structure your stories?
You see, I don't have any of those. So I don't, I can't talk about MFA. I don't have an MFA. What I have is a gift, and I have the ability to storytell, and I read a lot. So when I did my first one, it was not like, okay, I want to write, let's look for a school. I didn't do that. I don't think I would have done that to look for a school because I want to be an author, right? I just wrote the book based upon years of reading, and I said, okay, they normally talk about this happens here, but I didn't really know what it was. I just know when you open the book, it talks about she woke up from the bed and she did. Then you have inverted commas and you have this line and you have. So I knew that's just kind of how to write. But then so I wrote it. The first one was in a notebook. I wrote it where I felt like, typed it up, and then when I gave it to my editor, she says, no, but we're gonna work with you. And so she's like, these people need to be like human beings. Why don't he have a jacket on? It's cold. Why don't he have, so she started saying things like that to make me pay attention. So I don't know about the workshop. I mean, I do take craft workshops when I can. So I don't think you have to have it to start. I just believe that as you go along, you know what your strengths and your strengths are not. And then you try and hone your craft accordingly. Now, those degrees, I've never had one. So my readers tell me my books are good. So I think there's something to it.
You're doing something right.
Yeah, I'm doing something right.
Yeah. So the question I have is the time for authentic African storytelling in the future?
No, I believe it has been in the past. We just recognizing it now. I think it has always been a time for us to tell our own stories. There's a proverb that says that until the lion can tell his story, the hunter gets the glory, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, and that's the truth, because if we do not tell them, anybody can tell them. It's almost like he's not answered to your name. Anybody can call it. And let's not even put it tribal. Let's put it as a child of God. If you do not know what your identity is and who you are, you will answer to anything. Doubt. You will answer to fear. You will answer to anything if you do not know what your identity is. And so when you know who God is and when you know that story, you know what you are. So the same thing with African stories. If we don't tell them, they're going to be painted in a brush that's not really what it is. And they can paint it any way. I told you the story of having a publisher actually tell me, no, not a publisher, an agent, actually tell me that what publishers are looking for are, because I write Christian fiction, so I want to write Christian. I can do mainstream, but that's not what I want to do. And she actually told me that for Christian, that no, a contemporary African story would not really sell.
Wow.
And
this is based on her experience, or
based
just
on
notion?
Publishers. I guess that's what, because she's an agent, so I guess it's what publishers are saying. I was even told that unless the story has a white person that comes to build a well in the village, or comes to help with AIDS and poverty. I'm like, in 2020, really? We're still talking about that? You're still trying to paint us with that brush. We are more than that. So much more. So much more. And so I feel it's time for us to tell our stories. Historically, contemporary, whatever the case may be. It's time for us to step up and tell our own stories.
And there are many facets to the African story. It's not just one narrative, right?
It's not.
And it's through our stories that we're able to educate the world.
Exactly. And I think,
right?
Historically, and it's unfortunate that it hasn't changed, people tend to want to paint us with a broad brush of pain and poverty and strife. And that's not all the narrative is. We have joy, we have parties, we have good times, we have good roads, we have
family,
we have
friends,
we have fun, we have friends, we have rich people, there's so much to the African story, to the continent. But when you get these images where you have the little child with the disproportionate stomach with the fly hanging around here, you think that's what everything looks like. It's not. Everybody does not come from that, And so we have to take charge, or we will continue to be the place where those stories people misconstrue what we have going on.
And I'm not saying that those things don't exist, but I'm just saying let us get a balanced view of what the real story is.
But we have to have balance.
That's a very valid point.